Welcome, Switched On crew. Dan here with today's signals around going beyond our limitations. With me is Martina Geromin, the co-founder of the School Beyond Limitations, and more. A great quote from Martina in the episode: "You will never finish knowing." Come join us and enjoy the show. Welcome to the Switched On Podcast. Today we have Martina Geromin with us. Martina is an expert in education, knowledge management, and leadership. She's a co-founder of the School Beyond Limitations, a school that sees students as a whole human being and a school that would go beyond their limitations. I want to say welcome, Martina. I'm excited having this show. It's a really fun concept. And can you tell us a bit more about your background beyond my intro?
Well, first of all, thank you, Dan, for having me. That's very kind of you. Yes, well, I mean, going beyond limitations with education, this has been my baby ever since I can remember, because already you may not believe it, but already at the age of 5, I knew that I would do something in education. And I knew that I would become a teacher, and I knew that I would actually, at the end of the day, create my own school. This was clear to me. And interestingly enough, of course, I went through formal education. I did a number of academic titles, and I started teaching. I'm Italian, started teaching there. I did research a lot, and then I ended up moving from country to country as well. And I went working in different educational systems. And in each system, I realized there was always something that I was doing differently. I always had this perception that I needed to bring some flexibility into the system by seeing the students first. And interestingly enough, I always had a very, very strong bonding with my students, and many when they were in my lessons, they just enjoyed my lessons. And then I ended up working in the international context. I realized also there that when I was working with students, I integrated lots of different modalities so that they really got inspired again. Sometimes they lost their interest, especially when they were older. They just did their learning for the sake of learning or studying because they had to undertake examinations or whatsoever. And I always felt this is not enough. Then I became a leader, a school leader, a principal, head of school in international schools. I also worked at university level. I went through the entire system from kindergarten up to university and adult education. And, also moving from one country myself to another, I realized that I always had this pain in myself to leave back, my setting and students and staff and then I met the co-founder, my partner of School Beyond Limitations, and she was the one telling me, but Martina, wouldn't it be possible also to create an online school? And then I said, wow, that's an interesting idea, but I would like to have an online school that is really a holistic online school. An online school that's not, just based on, preparing for examinations and studying certain subjects. I want it to be holistic. I want the student to be seen in his entirety, in his entire being. And so School Beyond Limitations, the concept has been developed. Because it was meant to actually give a possibility of continuity with regards to education for digital nomad families who wanted the school to come along with them, for families who were looking for an alternative to the standardized education system because they want their children to, let's say, to see the world from different perspectives and not by going through and conditioning learning that may take them away from their purpose. and may take them away from their interest, may take them away from their, also talents. And so there was also, a target group of people. And then, of course, also the fact of giving the entrepreneurial aspect much more importance as well. So I believe, really strongly believe, although I'm a holder of a number of different degrees, and I don't want to go into detail with regards to that, because of course I loved learning. I still love learning, and I understood by going through the learning process that learning is a never-ending story, and it's not necessarily geared towards finishing a degree. It's more geared towards bringing something into this reality, into the world, and making sense of our reality. And that's why we created this, because we want our students to see that their ideas are taken seriously, that their ideas can, so to say, transform into something, into not only an experiment, it can also transform into a real company. So what I wanted to say before, I don't think that college is redundant, don't get me wrong, but I think it's not necessary anymore in today's time to wait until all the degrees are completed before you start your own business. So if you really feel driven by getting a degree, then go for that degree. But that doesn't tell you that you can't already start alongside something where you can generate either some money, and it's not only money driven, it's also purpose in the first place, purpose driven, right? Because in our conversation before we started to get into this conversation, you were telling about this, maybe you want to share this story yourself, about this young boy who talked about the tractor, that he loves driving the tractor. Would you like to share that again? Because I really love that story.
Yeah, no, it's a great insight in that the little boy, kindergartner, was coming in and saying, hey, I want to be a tractor driver. And, really, just all he wanted to do. And then you interact with the boy and he says, well, I can't do that because I have to go to college. And you quickly were like, no, you can tell your soul's purpose is to drive a tractor. And the funny thought was around, wow, we want kids to go to college, then we spend $200,000 to put them into a college. You could have spent $50,000 and buy the kid a tractor, set him up in his own business, and he would be doing his soul's purpose and wonderfully happy. And
exactly.
Having the freedom for all of us to know that that's not only is it okay, but it's really what we should be doing. Exactly. is turning that line on. So
exactly, Dan. And this was also a reason for having created School Beyond Limitations, because this is what we are doing there. We actually do have students, 13 years old student, who came up with the idea of creating a fashion company, right? And he was so inspired by that he actually just talked to me. And now we created the space for him and others to create their own company. And now they are in the process of creating their own company. And they are coached through that process via myself, but also via my co-founder and other entrepreneurs, so that they get really all the insights of how to do also the nitty-gritty stuff and how to put ideas into reality.
Yeah.
And they are so extremely inspired, all of them, right, that they can't stop learning and can't stop doing. And they meet beyond school hours, they connect between the different countries because they are sitting in different countries, and they make it happen. And we also make it happen. We also have a 15 years old who has already, generated the money for for the school fees because he's into trading. And then we have another one who is working in the stables because he loves animals and he has realized that he can do that and earn some money, and he has understood at the age of 12 that he can buy his own laptop by himself by doing that. So his parents, you can imagine, they are completely happy because they say, he's becoming independent, and they actually learn to navigate reality as it really is, because we don't make this categorization and this distinction. Here is school, and then you go through school, and then you come into life. But it's this kind of intersection and interaction between life and school, and learning and learning and learning and learning. And out of that, so many possibilities are created, right? And this is what we are continuously doing with our students. We first of all, we try to understand where are they coming from by using lots of tools. And when we understand them, we actually, first of all, we look at them as beings who already know, because we all hold this tacit knowledge inside us already. So it's not that we think that we deal with students that don't know anything and that they have to be filled with information. No, we see them as knowing beings, right? So it's actually, we help them extract what is already within them, and then we help them to make sense of that by reaching out to what it is outside at their reach, right? But first of all, we ask them, what do you already know about this? What is the question that comes to mind? What would you like to find out about this? What would be the next question that would take you into the next step with the idea of creating whatever, So it's always based, and what kind of new possibility will give you that? Which kind of energy do you feel when you go in that direction? So it's always seeing the entire being, because it's not just at the mental level. It's more than that, right? It makes sense. So we try to also understand, how do they, as I said before, what's their authority? Are they more based on, on their own emotions? Does it have to be related to their own emotions, or is it more they need to process it through their minds first? Because that's interesting. Once we know that, we can help them, because what we think, what a teacher actually is a coach, is a guide at the student's side. So it's not a teacher filling and saying you have to, it's more facilitating. And of course, sometimes they need some clearer guidance because they have so many ideas in their mind and they can't get any sense of that because it's too much. And then it's the teacher's purpose and actually task to bring a little bit of order into their many ideas, but not by dismissing the other ideas, but just by giving them the sense of completion sometimes for something, right? Because also the sense of completion of a project. You were talking before about experiential learning, and we also say it's about experiencing all things, right?
Yeah.
When you experience it through your body, through your mind, and through your soul, spiritual system, then it just makes sense, and you become that, you are that person, right? You don't have to become it anymore because you are just that person, and naturally, you are, so to say, driven by the calling that is within you.
No, you said a few things there that I took some notes on, that this concept of knowing beings. And one of the things that I've really been surprised at is moving up into the adults of all of us. I've seen it so often that something happens as we turn into adults, where that feeling that we're a knowing being seems to just close down, and we're not really questioning some of your great questions that you pose there. We're not really being real experiential anymore. So much of what you're saying is pertinent to all of us. I love it.
Yeah, and thank you. And another aspect which we also put a very important emphasis on is this looking at anything from the perspective of not being judgmental.
Yeah.
Look at things first, and try to sense, is this just an opinion, or is this really, is this reality? Because we can look at anything and we will find out, that there are so many different scientific researches, theses out there that may even contradict, between one another on the same topic. And this is what we also try to help the students to just be open, to open the space, to be non-judgmental, and to not just make a judgment on everyone immediately. And that's why, for instance, we don't apply grading. We don't grade our students. We never grade our students. Although we prepare them, of course, if they are ready and want to be prepared for final examinations. Of course, we want to lead them also towards university if they are ready and if they want to go in that direction. And we do that. And there, of course, grading will be part of their lives, right? But they look at it then from a different angle. They want to do well. I mean, they do also well. And that's interesting as well, because we then see that this model actually works so well, because they don't do it because there's pressure. They do it because it's been extracted from within them. They want to do it, right?
Yeah.
So it's again, looking at things, looking at the presentation by another student, or by to one's own project, from a perspective of asking questions. Have I given all my best? Have I looked at all the different aspects? Have I considered this and that, right? So, and that opens a new space, and that helps them also become open-minded and global citizens, because they would not, start. Of course, it may take a while for those students who come from a traditional system, but children who come all the way through with such a model, they don't unlearn that, because a child, that, right? At the age of 3, 4, they are full. Maybe at 4 already it starts, if they are, indoctrinated by something outside. But the younger they are, they would just look at everything with wonder, with awe, curiosity. They don't say, I don't like you, they may, of course, have some reactions, but they are in wonder. And that's why I always say it's very important to expose children to a variety, because what I often see now, that children already from a very early stage are just exposed very often to only, iPad, use of electronic devices and TV, and,
Right.
And that's just one channel, and that can that actually doesn't allow them to experience the variety of the reality we are living in.
I love it. You could have written parts of my book better than I wrote them after listening to what you just said, because so many similarities around I use a question set in meetings and in life, where I always say, okay, is this something that I know, or is this something that I think I know? And in meetings, I would ask presenters, hey, is this something you know, or is this something you think you know? And then I would ask another question, which is, what more do I need to know to feel like I know? To just put myself through a little bit, and then you can go get more information to try to say, okay, for me to make a decision on, is a product line profitable or not, what more do I need? And let me go investigate that. But a lot of really interesting applications for kind of that process that you're identifying there. And I use it every day in all of my choices. So really,
Yeah,
really
and
love it.
that's great. And Dan, this applies to business. It applies to all life
Yeah.
questions. And at the end of the day, even in a business, right, you always develop further and advance further by adding new questions, right? At the end of the day, you realize, you will never finish knowing, right?
That's right.
There's always something new, because once a certain product has been extremely interesting on the market, it may change. We have lots of examples. Fashion changes all the time. Well, it's why does it change? But even with technology, with cars, name them. We
Yeah.
even in architecture, we go through phases, right? And we
Yeah.
always look for something new.
Well, I think I just got the name for this podcast episode is what you just said. I'm going to name it "You Will Never Finish Knowing." I really like that quote.
Thank you.
If you were to highlight maybe two things that you feel is most misunderstood about the way education is working and the way kids learn, or the best way to develop kids, what do you think? What would you highlight as the couple that you think?
Well, if I'm considering the standardized education system, then I think it's really the misunderstanding there is that putting more is beneficial for students. Putting more of notions, the more notions, the better. And I think that's completely wrong, because you will never be able to know all the information that is out there. The more we read, the more we realize. What we said before, the more we may know, we start understanding that there is never an end to this pot, and
Right.
and it's probably, and that's why I think we need to get away from filling the pot. It's more about facilitating. And another thing I think which is also where I also have my reservations on with the traditional system, is seeing the student as categorized into age groups, into subject areas, and so forth.
Right.
So categorizing, seeing them as a part of, you are now 12, and at the age of 12 you have to be this way, and at the age of 13 you have to be this way. And I think that's wrong, because we are all so different, and unique, and we all have different needs. But if we create an education system, and School Beyond Limitations also aims to do that, to personalize as much as we can. And that doesn't mean to give space to selfishness. It means to give space to flourishing the uniqueness of a person, in order for that person to contribute to the bigger good, to the larger good.
Yeah.
And then there is no when you start seeing things from that angle, you realize that at the end of the day, the other person, your peer, is not a competitor. We have learned through this grading system that we have to compete all the time.
Yeah.
And it's not about competition, it's about cooperation. And what the one person brings into reality, and the other one, if that in the intersection there creates something that's very valuable, right? And then and that takes me to this tacit knowledge sharing, right? Because I'm a firm believer that we hold much more knowledge in ourselves that is not written down in books. You have written your book, Signals, right? But there is much more behind the book in yourself.
Yeah.
And I can read as much as I want your book, but still there is a treasure, much a deeper treasure within yourself, within you, that I think we need to create a space where this treasure that is within us comes out, is extrapolated. And when a person actually sees that and appreciates that, each person, then they start to appreciate themselves. And then we start not questioning ourselves anymore, because we then start seeing the uniqueness of ourselves and the beauty that each person brings into the field, instead of saying you have to be like this, because if you don't reach that grade, then you are bad, or you can't pursue this way, and while it's wrong, because I can, of course you have to also walk the talk, right? I can't say to a student, you just lie down. Maybe there may be a phase where they are just demotivated, but they are usually demotivated because they don't have, they don't have guidance there, or because they are just filled in with notions that don't make any sense to them, right? Or it's just temporary, But if they see that they are actually not only valuable, that they are so important, and each one is important, the same important as everyone else, then they appreciate themselves and also the others, and they don't say, wow, you don't have a nice whatever. You have to wear this, and you have to wear that, and you have to drive this or that. And by saying that, I don't want to say that you can't develop a sense for an aesthetic sense. Don't get me wrong. It's just that you don't that you are actually free, and start making this conscious choices that make you feel good. And if you feel good about yourself, automatically you emanate this sparkle to the other people around you, and the other people around you will also be will be attracted into that field.
All right, well, very good. Well, time flies by. I feel like we're just getting started, but as we kind of wrap this up, there's two things I like to ask. One is if you were to narrow it down to one thing you want everybody to take away from this half an hour that you've spent with them, what would be that one thing?
Well, one thing is you are unique, and there are so many possibilities out there, and use your uniqueness to navigate all the possibilities in your life.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it is what we should thrive in, is that we're here for our unique purpose, and we all have our uniqueness, and we should relish it and be excited about that. So I love that.
Thank you.
The last one is my cauliflower moment question that I ask every guest, and it's a fun one. It's around a moment where you had a belief in something that you never really questioned, and then all of a sudden you stopped and questioned it. You wound up realizing that what you believed in was potentially not what you should have been, or what you had thought you were really believing. So what jumps out at you when I'm asking you that?
Well, maybe what comes to my mind is previous in my life, I always was looking for identity, right? What am I? I was always driven by this, who am I? And now I just found out I know who I am, right? I mean, it's me, and this question, this looking for the identity, for an identity that I was looking outside of myself, actually took me away from myself. So now I know, I mean, you already know who you are, right? And that was revealing, and it was a journey, of course, but that's even more underlining what I'm trying to do now, and the purpose why I'm here now is to make sure that nobody has to go through such a long learning process, because children know who they are. They don't question themselves, if when they are young. They start to question themselves when they are always compared to others. And so and maybe what always actually took me forward was always taking challenges, and taking and looking for what else is possible. And so that's my story, probably.
Yeah, I really, that one, boy, it is, I think the realization I know for my own self of that, looking outside for the validation or the shaping of who you think you are, that took me so many layers to unpack. I had so deeply buried the real identity, and I didn't even realize it until I started to unpack it. And it's quite stunning what evolves there. And I think, we could have a whole nother discussion just on that topic, because I love it.
Maybe we may have in the future, who knows?
Yeah. Well, listen, really appreciate your time. And if people want to connect with you or reach out to you, how would they get a hold of you, or how would they connect?
Well, we are certainly online. You can find us on through our website, which is school-beyond-limitations.com. Then we are also present on all the different social media channels, such as YouTube. We have a channel there. Then Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. And through our website, you can get in direct touch with us. And by the way, if I may just say that if somebody should feel is an educator out there, or a parent who looks for something like that, we are a context that is location independent as well.
Yes.
So one can learn with us, a student can learn with us from wherever they want to connect with us, right? So that's also something which is great. But on top of that, we are also always looking for educators that are highly qualified, that bring already a number of years, at least 5 years of experience, at least, and that share our values as well. If they also share our values, then I'm happy to receive any applications because
great.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, wonderful meeting you today, and thank you for sharing. And you really, I'm taking away several things myself from this discussion, so excited about it.
Thank you so much, Dan, for having me.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.